Reformed. And good morning. I'm Mark Berry, and I am very honored and very privileged to have the opportunity to be your guest speaker here this morning. And thank you, Reverend Suzanne, for the beautiful prayer treatments and the meditation. And thank you to Jess for making us sound good, and Mary Ann for accompanying, and thank you each and every one of you for being here this morning. I wrote a great talk for this morning, and I'm going to save that one for next time, because this talk just kept dominating my thoughts. It just was compelling, and I just, well, okay, that means it's time to do this. This is going to be a talk about a couple of times when I died and obviously came back. So afterlife, there and back again is what I call it. When I've shared some of these stories with friends, family, even poker boys, everybody seems fascinated and they want to hear more and they want to ask questions. So based on that, I thought it would, I'll share it with everybody. Now this is my firsthand report of what happened to me, what I experienced. There are teachers who, of course, there's many teachers who have taught and spoken on death and afterlife. The one that comes to mind is Meister Eckhart, a couple generations ago in Europe. He's got a wonderful explanation of what happens during that time. Another one is, as some of you know, I have a relationship with Tibetan Buddhist monks, and they have their Tibetan Book of the Dead. And it explains what happens after 12 hours and 54 hours and all the different things. My experience is different. Their explanations are different from one another, and my experience is different from that. So, right to it. The first time I died, I was 19, I was in college, it was sound asleep, it was the middle of the night, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And I woke up startled, panicked, because I couldn't breathe. There's that flap in the esophagus, I forget what the medical name is, but it goes one way so you can breathe into your lungs, and it goes the other way so food and drink go into the digestive system. Well, apparently that flap had gotten clogged with mucus or something, I don't know. And I had exhaled. In my sleep, breathing, I had exhaled, and it was stuck, and I couldn't get any air. And Panic City, just horrible terror, Panic City, for less than a second. And then I popped out of the body. And that was remarkable. Because, of course, God's universe is so good. And of course, Creator and creation is so good to us and for us, as we've experienced already many, many times in our lives. It's not going to be terrible then either. So I experienced all of that horribleness, but in less than a second, it popped out. And then I was up where the ceiling meets the wall. And my consciousness, everything but my physical body, was up there. And I was looking at Mark's body down there on the bed, and I noticed he flipped himself over on his hands and knees, and he was trying to do the dragon fire yoga breath to try and give himself Heimlich or something. And I was just observing that. That's interesting. And the next thing that surprised the heck out of me was when I realized this might be it. This might be the end of this life. And also, Mark might start breathing again, and we might continue in this form. I had no preference, which shocked me. Because we have our survival instinct, which is a good thing, the survival instinct that makes us want to survive. And I've never been without that one moment of my life until this experience. And the experience was, thy will be done. If that happens, that's fine. If that happens, that's fine. It was a moment of blissful peace that I will never forget. Next thing I knew, by the way, there have been lots of reports of people who've had near-death experiences. There have been documentation reports, there have been documentary films, and I've read and studied hundreds, literally hundreds of people because I'm curious about their experience, having my experience. And from what I have learned, it's all the same. Now, these people come from different countries, different languages, different backgrounds. They come from different faith traditions, many from no faith tradition. And yet, if you take them all together and you listen to them objectively, you can tell they're all describing the same thing. They all use the words light, they all use the words love, they all use the words spirit or God or creator or something like that. And so I think different people expressing it in their own way, it seems to me quite clearly that we all have the same experience. So this is this is what's yet to come for you. I'm quite sure. So the next thing I knew, I was in the tunnel of light, as they call it. Mine seemed like a corridor, and you don't have arms and legs, when you leave the body behind. So there I was, this consciousness, this spirit, and I was kind of just moving along this corridor of light in this place of bright light, and it wasn't like walking. It was like some airports have those moving sidewalks where you just kind of glide along. That's the way it felt, just kind of glide along. Well, on both sides, a long way, were beings. And since they were light beings and we were in a light environment, I couldn't make out facial characteristics of anybody, but I could feel the love. Everyone was there to greet me with love. And it's a feeling that we can't really describe. Our vocabulary is inadequate, because when we leave behind this body with its limitations, I can't see what bees see, and I can't hear what dogs hear, and I can't smell what bears smell. I'm limited to the human realm of perception with my five senses. Imagination is wonderful, but without being in the body, it's exquisite, it's blissful, and we just don't have adjectives. So I felt all the love of all these light beings on both sides, almost shoulder to shoulder. And I could make out that some were taller and some were wider than others. And it was the way the love felt that you knew who was there. I felt the love of grandparents. I felt the love of aunts and uncles and cousins. And I felt the love of even childhood buddies, even people that I don't exactly remember the people I connected with in nursery school and first grade, but the ones that had already passed were there. Even pets, even little dog and cat energy from beloved pets. Energy from ancient people who were like, when I was a baby, they might have been my great aunts or grandparents or something like that. And people I don't remember, but they were all there. So going down this tunnel of light in this corridor of love, and adjectives fail. And when I got to the end, I kind of was rising up, I was a little bit elevated, and there was a being. And the being was standing there, arms outstretched in a cross-like position in a white robe. And I got the distinct feeling that it was Christ. It was Jesus the Christ. And having been raised Christian, Jesus the Christ has always been in my way shoulder, my master teacher. And so, other people with different faith traditions or no faith tradition, that part might have looked different to them. It's so good. It's going to be what is best for you, what feels best to you. And we don't have mouths and ears to talk like we are right now. But I was made to understand, there is communication, and I was made to understand in that moment that for you, this is a sneak preview of coming attractions. This is not your time. You're going back now. But this is what it's going to be like down the road when it is your time. It was awesome experience. And a second later, I was back in my body, and Mark was breathing, and everything was back to normal. So, what do I take away from that? Thy will be done. If I could surrender, if I could release my grasp on things, the way my ego wants to hold on to possessions and hold on to things, and if I could just be at peace and thy will be done, that is a great gift that I took away from that. And the other gift I take away from that is I'm no longer afraid of dying, the dying experience, and I'm no longer afraid of death, of being dead and being in the afterlife. So those are pretty great takeaways from that experience. Always before, I had been, when I hear about people on the news or people I know that die, and I hear about maybe somebody drowning or suffocating in a fire or something like that, I've always thought, oh, how terrible, oh, how awful. And it was distressing to me. Now I realize that God's universe is so good that we pop out. And now I don't worry about that. So, second time. I had smashed this little finger into several pieces, and there was emergency surgery over here at Auburn Faith to put it back together. And it was not scheduled surgery, so the time the OR and the doctor were available was 11 o'clock at night. And I was in the OR from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., and thank you very much, they fixed my finger. Well, at 1 a.m., when they were through with the procedure, the anesthesiologist said all his vital signs are fine, so he's good to go. Well, it was 1 a.m., so they didn't wake me up and ask me who's the president and what day of the week is it, as you do sometimes when you come out of anesthesia. They just rolled me into a ward to sleep the night. Thank you. How sweet of them. Sleep is so beautiful, especially when you're healing. When the nurse came on in the morning to sign on for the shift and be responsible for everybody, she told me later, when I saw you, when I was doing the morning rounds, you were kind of a cross between Smurf Blue and Barney Purple. So I knew you hadn't been breathing for a while. And she hit the panic button, which is what they do. You've heard in movies and TV, code blue. Well, excuse me, that's what that means. Code blue means they're not breathing and we have seconds. So everybody came and they slapped that contraption on my face. They didn't break my nose, but they bloodied my nose. They were real serious about getting me started again. And they were, they call it bagging, to get the oxygen movement and all that stuff. Well, while they're doing that, I've gone through the tunnel of life this time. I've gone into the afterlife, and I'm there. I'm really there. And I'm in this place of light with these light beings, and none of the light beings were taller or brighter than any other. We were just all in this blissful, exquisite place. And what I was doing was, I was amongst other light beings surrounding a planet. And it could have been the planet Earth. It didn't have a name tag on it, but it could have been the planet Earth. Maybe not, but I was one of many surrounding. Have you seen that candle holder? You seen that candle holder with the people around it arm in arm where there's no actual facial detail? I'm thinking the ancient Aztec that first made that must have had the same experience I did, because that's exactly what it was like. We're all these light beings. We're blessing this planet. We're blessing the living planet itself, the inside. And we're blessing everything that glows on this planet. We're blessing the atmosphere, the waters, the beings, the beings that crawl and swim and fly and walk on two legs. Just blessing, just love, exquisite. And then I hear this faint little dim voice from far, far away. I know what's happening because you know everything, you don't just understand everything. And my thought was, oh, do I have to go back there? This is so good. But again, you have that feeling of thy will be done. So whatever's in divine order. So I came back. And what I had to take away from that experience is an affirmation of the first one, that there's nothing to fear. All is well, and continues to all be well. When as a minister, I sometimes have the opportunity to officiate funerals or celebrations of life. Knowing what I know, it's a little difficult, but I have to put on my game face. When I first come out, there was a room full of people with their tissues and everything, and they're mourning and grieving naturally. I have to put on my serious game face because I am so excited for the dearly departed. I'm so excited for our loved one because I know where they're going and I know what they're doing. And I know how great it is. One time, there was family, fairly good-sized service, and little Johnny was maybe 5 years old, and he was just staring and smiling like that. And his mother asked him, "What do you see, Johnny?" "Grandpa, he's right there. He's smiling, he's watching." It was his service. So there's so many confirmations of my experience. That was one, and there's hundreds and hundreds of others that have happened to other people that just fit in perfectly with what I have. So if you leave here with something today, perhaps you'll leave here with the knowledge that there is nothing to fear. If we don't fear death, as a human society with our survival instincts, that's the big deal, right? if we don't need to fear death, then why would we be worried about anything? Why would we be stressed about anything? Bills, jobs, relationships. It's all unfolding, just as it's meant to be, obviously. It has in your life. If you're stressed and worried about something now, don't be. You can pray instead, you can affirm instead, you can know that everything's going to turn out all right. How do I know that? Because so far in your life, everything's turned out all right. When you thought there was that crisis and how will I ever survive this? You did. We're here now. And this is the best day of your life, as Alan sang, I am so glad you're here to share in the best day ever. Today, right now. There's nothing to fear. It's all good. You are taken care of. And so are your loved ones who have passed. Now, my daughter passed, both my parents passed, and of course I go through the mourning and the grieving. It's kind of selfish, because I miss them. And I miss them terribly, and I wish I could hug them and talk to them this way. But I'm so happy for them that they are where they are. And now we can talk, but differently. Now we don't have to wait for the return phone call. Now we don't have to wait for the card in the mail. Now it's instant connection, instant communication because of my loved ones. So that's what I have to leave with you this morning. Let's take a moment and just go inside for a minute. And let us give thanks for this beautiful day, Marianne. I totally agree with you about the weather. I'm born and raised in San Francisco. Thank you for this beautiful, cool weather. We are so grateful for this day, the best day ever. This is the day. This is the day the Lord has made. And I choose to rejoice and be glad in it. We choose to be glad in the company we have with our spiritual family right now, in this room full of loving, supportive, beautiful souls, spirits that we're sharing this excellent moment with. Thank you for the knowledge that it's going to continue. It's going to continue to be good. And thank you for the opportunity to be there for other people when they're stressed out or they're worried about something. Thank you that we have this understanding where we can be truly, as Jesus said, we can be the light of the world. So it is.